Imagine a tree so vast that its branches hold entire worlds, its roots stretch into the depths of creation itself, and its trunk serves as the axis around which all existence revolves. This is Yggdrasil, the world tree of Norse mythology, whose mighty frame supports 9 distinct realms where gods, giants, elves, and mortals play out their eternal dramas of war, wisdom, and fate. In the beginning, when the cosmos was young and the void of Ginnungagap had only recently been filled with the first stirrings of creation, the gods knew that their new universe needed structure and stability. From the body of the slain giant Ymir, they had fashioned the earth and sky, but these raw materials required a framework that could give meaning and connection to the scattered elements of existence. Thus was born Yggdrasil, whose name carries the haunting meaning Odin's horse, referring to the time when the All-Father would hang himself from its branches for 9 days and nights to gain the wisdom of the runes. This mighty ash tree was not planted but emerged from the very fabric of reality itself, its growth marking the transition from chaos to cosmos, from void to meaning. The tree's immensity defied mortal comprehension, its crown stretched beyond the highest heavens, its branches extending so far that they seemed to touch the edges of infinity itself. No eagle, no matter how strong or swift, could fly from one end of its canopy to the other in a single lifetime. Its trunk was so massive that armies could march around its base for years without completing the circuit. Yet Yggdrasil was more than merely large. It was alive in ways that transcended ordinary botanical existence. The tree pulsed with cosmic consciousness, its sap flowing with the very essence of life and wisdom. Its leaves whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen, and its bark bore the scars and stories of every significant event that had ever occurred in the 9 realms. At the tree's crown dwelt an enormous eagle, whose name has been lost to time, but whose presence was felt throughout all the worlds. This great bird of prey, perched between the eagle's eyes, sat a hawk called Vedafölnir, whose sharp sight could penetrate any deception and whose cries could be heard across vast distances. Together, these aerial sentinels watched over the upper reaches of creation, observing the movements of gods and mortals alike. Among the tree's mighty branches scampered 4 stags named Dain, Dvalin, Duneyr, and Durathror, whose constant nibbling on the tender shoots and leaves represented the ongoing process of renewal and decay that governed all natural cycles. These creatures embodied the principle that even the most sacred and eternal things must undergo continuous change to maintain their vitality and relevance. But perhaps the most significant inhabitant of Yggdrasil's branches was Ratatoska, the squirrel whose name meant drill tooth, and whose purpose was to carry messages between the eagle at the crown and the dragon Nidugga, who gnawed at the tree's roots. This seemingly innocent messenger served a darker purpose, deliberately spreading discord and insults between the upper and lower regions of the cosmic tree, ensuring that the tension between opposing forces remained constant. The trunk of Yggdrasil served as the vertical axis that connected all 9 worlds, allowing for travel and communication between realms that would otherwise remain forever isolated. The tree's bark bore the marks of countless journeys, as gods and other supernatural beings carved handholds and pathways that enabled them to climb between the different levels of existence. At the very heart of this cosmic arrangement lay the 3 great roots of Yggdrasil, each extending into a different realm and drawing sustenance from sources that represented fundamental aspects of existence. These roots were not merely anchors that held the tree in place, but conduits through which the essential forces of creation flowed upward to nourish all the worlds above. The first root stretched into Asgard, realm of the Aesir gods, where it was nourished by the Well of Urd, also known as the Well of Fate. This sacred spring was tended by the three Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, who represented past, present, and future, respectively. These ancient beings spent their days weaving the threads of destiny that determined the fate of gods and mortals alike. Every day the gods would ride across the rainbow bridge Bifrost to hold their court beside the well of Urd, making decisions that would affect all the 9 worlds. The Norns would sprinkle water from their well upon the root, keeping this portion of Yggdrasil healthy and strong. The water was so pure and powerful that anything it touched became as white as the membrane of an eggshell, symbolizing the pristine nature of divine justice. The second root descended into Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, where it drew water from Mimir's well, the source of all wisdom and knowledge. This spring was guarded by Mimir himself, a wise giant whose head had been severed but continued to live and speak. Odin had once sacrificed his eye to drink from this well, gaining cosmic wisdom in exchange for his physical sight. The water from Mimir's well contained all the knowledge that had ever existed or ever would exist, from the secrets of creation to the details of Ragnarok's approach. Those who drank from it gained understanding of the underlying patterns that governed reality, but such knowledge came with a terrible price, for with wisdom came the burden of seeing all the suffering and injustice that existed in the world. The third and deepest root extended into Niflheim, the primordial realm of ice and mist, where it was gnawed upon by Nidhöggr, the malevolent dragon whose name meant malice striker. This serpentine creature represented the forces of entropy and destruction that constantly worked to undermine the cosmic order, its endless gnawing symbolizing the gradual decay that would eventually claim even the world tree itself. Beside Nidhöggr lived countless other serpents and dragons, all working together to weaken the foundation of existence itself. Their names were recorded in the ancient texts Goin, Moin, Grabakr, Grafvöluder, Ofnir, and Svafnir, each representing different aspects of corruption and decay. Yet their destructive work was necessary, for without the constant threat of dissolution, the cosmos would become static and sterile. From this cosmological foundation rose the 9 worlds themselves, each occupying its own distinct position within Yggdrasil's mighty frame, and each harboring unique forms of life that contributed to the richness and complexity of Norse existence. Asgard, highest of all the worlds, was the shining realm of the Aesir gods, connected to Midgard by the rainbow bridge Bifrost. Here stood the great hall Valhalla, where Odin gathered the bravest warriors who had fallen in battle, preparing them for the final conflict of Ragnarök. The golden-roofed halls of the gods gleamed with supernatural light, and the very air sparkled with divine power. The gods had built Asgard as both fortress and paradise, surrounding it with mighty walls that could withstand any assault from giants or other enemies. Within these walls lay beautiful palaces and halls, each designed to reflect the personality and domain of its divine inhabitant. Gladsheim served as Odin's primary residence, while Vingolf housed the goddesses, and numerous other halls provided spaces for divine deliberation and celebration. Midgard, the middle realm, was the world of humanity, fashioned from the body of the giant Ymir, and surrounded by an ocean in which the world serpent Jörmungandr dwelt. This was the realm that humans knew as their entire universe, yet it was merely one small part of the greater cosmic structure. The gods had given humans intelligence and the ability to create art and civilization, making Midgard a place where mortal creativity could flourish under divine protection. The humans of Midgard lived in constant awareness of their connection to the other worlds, knowing that their actions could attract the attention of gods, giants, and other supernatural beings. They built temples and altars beneath the sky, offerings that rose through Yggdrasil's branches to reach the divine realms above. Their heroes sometimes ventured into other worlds, bringing back tales of wonder and terror that enriched human understanding of their place in the cosmic order. Alfheim, realm of the light elves, was a world of beauty and radiance that existed somewhere between the divine and mortal spheres. These luminous beings were closely associated with the gods, particularly Freya, who ruled over Alfheim as a gift from the other Aesir. The light elves were creatures of great beauty and wisdom, their very presence bringing fertility and prosperity to whatever they touched. The architecture of Alfheim was said to be beyond mortal imagination, with towers and palaces built from crystallized light itself. The elves moved through their realm like living sunbeams, their passage leaving trails of golden radiance that could heal the sick and inspire artists to create works of transcendent beauty. They served as intermediaries between gods and mortals, carrying prayers upward and divine blessings downward. Vanaheim was the mysterious home of the Vanir gods, that older pantheon of fertility and prosperity deities who had made peace with the Aesir after a devastating war. Little was recorded about this realm in the surviving sources, suggesting that its secrets were closely guarded by its inhabitants. The Vanir who dwelt there were masters of natural magic and possessed knowledge of agricultural and maritime arts that even the Aesir respected. The landscape of Vanaheim was said to be incredibly fertile, with harvests that never failed and waters that teemed with fish. The Vanir had learned to live in harmony with natural cycles rather than trying to dominate them, creating a civilization that was both advanced and sustainable. Their wisdom in matters of peace and prosperity complemented the Aesir's expertise in war and governance. Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, was a wild and dangerous world of mountains, forests, and frozen wastes where the enemies of the gods made their homes. Yet it was not a realm of pure evil, for many giants possessed great wisdom and some even maintained friendly relationships with the Aesir. The landscape of Jotunheim was harsh but magnificent, with peaks that scraped the sky and valleys that plunged into mysterious depths. The giants of Jotunheim represented the wild, untamed forces of nature that civilization sought to control. They were often portrayed as enemies of the gods, yet they were also necessary opponents who provided the conflict that gave meaning to divine existence. Many giants possessed ancient wisdom that predated the gods themselves, and some served as teachers and allies to the Aesir despite their fundamental differences. Svartalfheim, realm of the dark elves or dwarves, lay beneath the earth in a network of caverns and underground halls where the master craftsmen of the cosmos practiced their arts. These skilled beings had created many of the gods' most precious possessions, from Odin's spear Gungnir to Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Their forges burned with supernatural fire, and their anvils rang with the sounds of creation itself. The dwarves were creatures of earth and stone, as comfortable in the dark depths as humans were under the open sky. Their cities were marvels of engineering, carved from living rock and illuminated by gems that glowed within a light. They hoarded gold and precious metals, not from greed, but because these materials were the raw stuff of their magical craftsmanship. Muspelheim was the realm of fire, existing at the opposite extreme from Isi Niflheim and ruled by the fire giant Surtur, who would one day set all the worlds ablaze during Ragnarok. This was a world of constant flame and heat, where rivers of lava flowed instead of water, and the very air shimmered with supernatural fire. Only beings of flame could survive in such an environment, making it largely inaccessible to gods and mortals alike. The fires of Muspelheim were not merely destructive, but also creative, for fire was necessary for both civilization and renewal. The forges of the dwarves drew their power from Muspelheim's flames, and the light that illuminated all the worlds ultimately traced its origin to this burning realm. Surtur waited there with his flaming sword, patient and terrible, knowing that his time would come when the cosmic cycle reached its inevitable conclusion. Niflheim, the primordial realm of ice and mist, was the oldest of all the worlds, existing even before the creation of the cosmos itself. This was a place of eternal cold and darkness, where nothing could grow and only the hardiest supernatural beings could survive. The mists of Niflheim were not merely water vapor, but the raw material of potential existence, containing within them the possibility of all future creation. From the interactions between the fire of Muspelheim and the ice of Niflheim had come the first stirrings of life in the void of Ginnungagap. The realm remained important as a source of primal forces and, as the dwelling place of Hel, goddess of the dead, who ruled over those who had died of sickness or old age rather than in glorious battle. The connection between all these worlds through Yggdrasil created a complex web of relationships and influences that shaped the daily existence of every being in the Norse cosmos. The tree itself was in constant motion, its branches swaying with cosmic winds, its trunk creaking as the worlds shifted in their eternal dance around its circumference. Travelers between worlds could climb Yggdrasil's trunk or follow the paths carved into its bark, though such journeys were perilous and required either divine nature or supernatural assistance. The tree's movement meant that the relative positions of the worlds were constantly changing, making navigation between realms a matter of skill, timing, and often pure luck. The life cycles of Yggdrasil mirrored the greater cycles of creation and destruction that governed all existence. The tree shed its leaves in cosmic autumn, stood bare during periods of cosmic winter, and burst into new growth during times of renewal and rebirth. These cycles affected all the worlds simultaneously, creating periods of prosperity and decline that touched every living being. The mythology surrounding Yggdrasil and the nine worlds reflected the Norse understanding of existence as fundamentally interconnected and cyclical. Nothing existed in isolation. Every action in one world had consequences that rippled through all the others. The gods in Asgard affected the lives of humans in Midgard, while the gnawing of Nidhöggr at the tree's roots threatened the stability of every realm. This cosmological model provided the Norse peoples with a framework for understanding their place in a complex and dangerous universe. They saw themselves as part of a grand cosmic drama in which their actions mattered not just for their own lives, but for the stability of existence itself. The knowledge that even the gods were subject to fate, and that the entire cosmos would eventually face destruction in Ragnarök, gave their culture a unique perspective on courage, honor, and the meaning of individual existence. The Nine Worlds and Yggdrasil continue to captivate modern imagination because they present a vision of reality that is both magical and logical, both beautiful and terrible. The World Tree stands as a symbol of the connections that bind all existence together, while the Nine Worlds represent the diversity and complexity that make existence rich and meaningful. In our contemporary world, facing environmental challenges and searching for sustainable ways of living, the Norse vision of interconnected worlds dependent on a living tree offers profound insights. Yggdrasil reminds us that all life is connected, that actions in one realm affect all others, and that the health of the whole depends on the wisdom and responsibility of each part. The enduring power of this mythological system lies in its recognition that existence is both fragile and resilient, constantly threatened by forces of destruction, yet continuously renewed through the cycles of death and rebirth that govern all natural processes. In Yggdrasil and the Nine Worlds, the Norse created not just a cosmology, but a meditation on the nature of life, death, and the eternal dance between order and chaos that gives meaning to existence itself.